Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and also thank you much for the opportunity to be here today. I feel very honored to share some of my insights with you. Do you know why corporations have been invented and when? It's a bit of time ago, in the 17th century. Actually, for us, it feels like something natural. Companies have been ever there, but they are not. They have been invented in the time of the colonialization, where they set up trade expositions. So they set up the ships, they set up the people, then it took 3 years. It was a situation with high rewards, but it was a situation with high risks and a need of high investments. So the idea was to put up the company, to mitigate the lack of capital and to mitigate the risk in these trade nations. In the next phase, the Industrial Revolution, we talked already a bit this morning about, was the next change, a big change, because there was a bit the foundation of the work how we know it today. So there were the firms, there were the factories, that was how we currently know how our work is structured. And mainly why this happened was because also there was a lack of capital. You needed, with the Industrial Revolution, there was the introduction of the steam machine, and the steam machine is very real estate. It's immovable. So you organize your work around this big machine that costs a lot of money. That's the basis. Why I tell you this? Well, I will tell you at the end of the talk, but it means that the way we work is very much influenced, not only by the technology, but about the lack of resources in a specific situation. So I'm not a historian, I'm a digital scientist, so I will not talk about the past, I will talk about the future. I think they are more valuable, and that's what I want to do today. So I am Dirk Werth, I am the CEO of the August-Wilhelm Scheer Institute, and we are an institution that thinks about how is the future, how is the digital future. We just work on digital research in a cross-industry setting. And today, my task, my ambition is to share with you our insights about how I see, how we see the future of work, especially under the context of digital change, of digital transformation. This is the specific, my viewpoint on the things. And I do that from my perspective, what I believe. I do that from the scientific perspective, what other scientists do. And I do it from a specific industrial experience. Every year we talk roughly with 1,000 companies, not me personally, the whole institution. And I tried to collect today some of the things that I always hear, which are, I call them myths, which are not fully what I believe is true, what I see is true. And I want to share this today to give you some insights, and my hope is that you come out in 45 minutes and 50 minutes with some new insights that you did not have before. I cannot exclude that obviously what I say is a bit a European perspective, because I come from Europe, and obviously all my experience I'm talking about is from Europe. But I think most is also valid in the same way in the US and in North America as it is in Europe or in Germany. What is actually my first impression when it's about the future of work? It's a personal experience. That's the future of work. It's about consulting and how to digitize a discipline that is mainly driven by knowledge provisioning. And I started also personally with this topic far before the pandemic, about 2016 actually. And we talked with a lot of consulting companies, with a lot of stakeholders in the consulting, from the junior associate to the senior partners, and the opinion was very clear. It was digital consulting, this cannot work. This is absolutely impossible because it's a people-driven business. It's something that you cannot digitize. And when I'm talking digitizing, I'm not talking just about automation, I'm talking about how to create new solutions under the influence of digital technologies. And well, this first argument was quite easy to contradict, so we built some solutions and we showed technically it's possible. That was easy. But then the next reaction was, well, yeah, okay, it might be that it's technically possible, but no one wants this. The customers don't want this digital solutions, this digital consulting provisioning. They want us, I mean, it's people business, they want us as a person to be at the side to talk with. And it was the same opinion from the juniors till the real seniors. And some people say I'm a bit stubborn, some people might be right. So what we did is, I don't believe this. I want to query this. So what we did is we made a study in 2018 and asked, are you interested? Do you have the willingness to use digital consulting services in your company? And we were not asking the consultancies because they knew the answer. We asked the clients. We asked the customers. And it was astonishing because actually, I don't know if you have a number in mind, it was far before Corona. 2/3 of them said, yes, of course, we would purchase them. And 1/3 even said we would purchase them directly, but there was nothing on the market that we can do. So why am I telling you this? First, I mean, we all know then came the pandemic, and now we know, obviously, it is possible, and currently in a lot of sub-industries and consulting, this is the state of the art, actually, how services are provisioned. And second, especially when it's about the future, you should never believe if someone tells you this is not possible, this will never work. Take it more like an ambition to challenge that, because my personal experience is in most cases it is possible. And this is the proof that it worked. And well, after Corona, I think we have a different role. When we talk okay. When we talk about digitization, the first thing people try to talk with me is about technology. And then I say, well, let's not talk about technology. Let's talk about how to bring up your business using digital technologies. And very quickly, in most of the interviews and most of the customer talks I have, then quickly it comes to artificial intelligence. How it affects the business, but also, and that's what I want to talk about today, how it affects the way we work. And probably you all know there are a lot of studies around how this would affect, and that AI is considered a job killer #1 for the next 10 years, depending which study you read. And actually this is true. This certainly will happen. There are studies that worldwide in the next 5 to 10 years, about 85 million jobs will be substituted by artificial intelligence. And that's the typical way of man work will be substituted by computers, by machinery. But actually that's not new. We had already the last 200 years. And what not every study tells you is that for the 850 million jobs that will be lost, about 100 million will be newly created, whereas they are not the same. But this is another topic I want to talk a bit later. And I personally, I have a bit of background of AI, I don't see it as a danger, because there are historical studies that show there is in national economies, there is a direct inverse correlation between the the degree of automation in the national economy and the degree of, or the unemployment rate. So the more automation an industry, a national economy has, the lower the unemployment rate actually is. And it's for the last 100 years very stable. And there are no really indications that this will change this. However, and that's what I said, we will come up certainly to the discussion what happens with the people that they lose their job and how to get them in a new job. And there are also numbers, about 50% of the workforce will be affected by this in the next 10 years. 50%, every second of you, which is a lot, which is a huge challenge for all societies, for all national economies. And it's the same in the US, it's the same in the industrial nations usually are more affected by this than the normal ones. However, what I see is we just focus on one part of the discussion, namely the question, how can we automate jobs? How we can substitute human work by computer work but this is not fully true because that's just one part of what AI can do. If you look at the current discussions, at the current what research is doing, and the current what also industry is doing, it's very much on what is scientifically called generative AI. So AI that is not just automating, but is creating values. And to give you an example, I made here, you see the sliders there. It's a website, it's very easy. It creates you logos. So if you ever want to create a startup or whatever, that site can create you logos. But it does it completely different than a human. So if I go to my office and say to my secretary, provide me a new logo for a project or for a startup or whatever that we want to do, they would give me 2-3 examples. They thought out, and I would say, well, this could be okay. Then they would come back, and there would be an iterative process. Here, the AI generates you thousands of variants without any effort because it's automated. So the process of selecting is, they give you 10 examples. You say, this is okay, this is not okay, this I like, this I don't like. And this iterates 3 times, and then you have your solution. A human would never work like that. If my office would give me 10 or 20 decision options, I would say, what do you do? I mean, that's that's not how we work. So what we come up and what we should discuss in the future of work is not so much the automation of human work by AI, because this will happen. If there is a technological option, this will happen. We have no way to stop it. If the US is not doing it, then China will do it, or Europe will do it, and vice versa. I mean, this will happen. The question is how we can use, and that's a very good example, AI to increase productivity. So like assistant systems, recommender systems, how we change processes in order to make the human work more productive. And that's just a specific part of human work, obviously, but the repetitive one will be automated anyway. There is no way around this. So and that's a bit the myth, we are talking about artificial intelligence. First, mainly we are talking just about automation, which is just a little part. And second, we miss the increasingly important part to increase productivity, because also from the national economic point of view, you need massively increased productivity because of the demographic change, because you have less and less people. So, but the question is, if I said 85 million will be lost, 100 million will be gained, 50% of you need to change, how to do? How and what happens with the people that you need to requalify? So let's look about this. They don't like me. When I talk also with politicians in Germany or also with unions, they say, yeah, we need to make a big program on requalification. So we have the people at the old workforce, and we will make programs on requalification, reskilling actually, to bring them into the new world. And that's just a part of the truth, because actually if you look at what is important, we talked about that already a bit in the morning. It's about the ability to learn. It's about usually this change will continue. So it's not a one-time upskilling, it will be a continuous upskilling. So there are forecasts that the people that now starts getting their job, there will be about 5 to 6 reskillings over their career time, continuously. And we need to prepare for this. But what does this mean, actually? When you look at the question, what you need? Well, first, what my personal opinion and my personal persuasion is, you need something that I call digital literacy. So it's something not that you know about technology. It's not about that you know how programming works. That's, if I can, I'm a computer scientist by myself, so that's the computer scientist's point of view. But it's about to understand how digitization works. How digitization works in economies, how it works on organizations, how it works on products, how it works on markets. It has nothing to do with programming. It's about understanding the basic concepts of how digital economies, how digital organizations work. And this is one part that, by the way, is just starting to be taught. It's just starting. In Europe, there are some initiatives, very few. In the US, I cannot say, but probably will be the same, because it's a worldwide tendency. And the second, and this is something I wanted to share with you, is about a question what it means in terms of digital skills, because, or if you want to call it digital competencies. So for the future of work, so for the work that we might have tomorrow, we will certainly have the situation that you need different skills. We would all agree on that. It's not the same, and interestingly, it's not so much. I mean, I talked 4 weeks ago with a Daimler executive that is responsible for the learning activities, and see that we are not looking for knowledge, people that have knowledge. We are looking for people that have competency, which is something completely different. And so what actually is currently the shift in 2 ways. One is from knowledge to competencies. So how can you integrate competencies? Means you can apply your knowledge. You know how to solve the problem in fact, not in theory. How you can bring this into the qualifications. And the second is, what does it mean in terms of digital qualification, digital skills itself? And I wanted to share with you, for me, it was the most interesting study I have read last year that was published, or actually that was executed by the World Economic Forum and McKinsey Global Institute. It's a similar research institute that we are, a bit larger. And what they did is they made an empirical study. They asked 17,000 people from the companies, what do you think? What are the needs for your workforce in order to encounter the challenges for the future of the jobs, of the requirements? And it's not specific for one industry, it's not specific for one job profile. They asked that in general and worldwide. It's not just in Europe, it was not just in the US, it was worldwide. So I would say it is representative. And what was interesting was they came up with, in total, 56 skills. They are very interesting. I mean, I can recommend every one of you to read it, because it gives you some directions of what you need to look and what to, but I don't want to go in detail for this today. They put it in 4 categories, 4 classes that you see here. Some are obvious, some are not so much. I mean, cognitive is a bit obvious. Interpersonal is, I'm not sure if every one of you would have expected that. Self-leadership, which I think is a very growing instrument, which is very seldomly taught, because most organizations currently tend to go away from hierarchical systems into self-organizing systems, agile systems. And the 4th, obviously, is digital. But it's not the most interesting or the most shocking insights why I usually show this slide. It's about, they don't say it's digital skills, they call it digital deltas, for a very easy reason, because what they identified, parts of it, are real skills. What we all understand as skills. It's something that you can learn, that you can teach, that is knowledge-based, that is something that can count on the competency. The other part, and that's the interesting part, is a part of those deltas are attitude, or that's how they call it. It's personal characteristics. It's something that is part of your personality. And I would argue, I mean, we can discuss on this later, this is something some psychologists say you cannot change, some say you can just rarely change, or in long-term change. But at least it's not something you can make a lesson on something, and then you know how it is. To give you an example, because this is a bit abstract, one of those attitudes is coping with uncertainty. So you have an environment, and it's unsure. A lot of things are unsure. I mean, we know that currently every day it feels, but this also from my personal experience is something you cannot learn. This is something, there are people that can cope with uncertainty, and there are people that don't. I mean, also in my team, we have both, certainly, and if I assign a task that needs especially this, I mean, we have a lot of things where we don't know the outcome yet. We start something, we do it experimental. Would I assign it to someone that cannot cope with uncertainty? Probably not, because the probability of failure is much higher. And there are more examples like this. And what does it mean? Because this has some interesting implications. It means that part of this requalification can be done, and part of the requalification, I mean, I will phrase it different. Maybe you cannot change everything to everything. So there are predefined paths depending on your characteristics. And to see this, what it means is, on the one hand, that my personal theory is there will be people that are able for the new, what I call new work, for the new challenges, and there will be people that are not. And for me, the rising, and I don't have an answer, and I don't know anyone that has, the rising question for societies, for national economies, is how to deal with this gap, and what you do with the people that are not suitable for new work, for this new agile, for these new highly dynamic work environments, that they will come. So my personal, if I may phrase this here, my personal belief is we will see different kinds of organization. We will see organizations that follow the new work approach, but we will also see other kinds of organizations that don't, that work the classical way, like we have worked 20 years ago. They will be also successful, maybe not as successful as the others, but they will be successful because they got people. Because what you do if you have people that are highly skilled, but they don't fit in your organization? Well, you create an organization where they fit in. And that leads me to my next point, because what we will see, I mean, it's not like a future, it's already the reality. How many of you are looking for good people? Or I will phrase it different. Who is not? So the next, what we see already is that the labor market is changing. That, I don't know if, who of you would say, I choose my employees? Who would say this? I see. It was a bit of a trap. Because if you choose your employees, you're not looking for the A-class people. The A candidates, they decide where they want to work. I see that every day. And they have very clear opinions how they want to work. And if you say, well, this is not for us, then you're out of the game. And so this is already a reality, and the interesting thing is it's not just for the high qualified jobs, at least in Europe, but I think here it could be similar. There was not in the last 2 years, there was not a single executive talk I had where we did not came up with this problem, how to get people. The right people, obviously. It's not about people, the right people, but they all have the same problem. Which means currently what we experience in the future of work, if you extrapolate this in the future, is that the market will shift. So it's no longer that people and potential employees apply to the employer. This is already changing. I mean, we are on some platforms where we as employer try to make the fireworks in order to present us the best way to potential candidates, obviously to the A candidates, but anyway. And this is not just that's the same for the handicraft, for the service provisioning and healthcare. I mean, there is no industry I talk with, they don't have the problem that they don't find the people. And that's why I say, I think there will be also a future for some conventional, excuse me the term, conventional organizations, because if there are people, there will be organizations. Because the lack of resource that we already have, and that will be even more in the future, will be the qualified people. And so the question is, how do you deal with this situation? You can say, well, obviously, I continue like I did before, but I don't think this is the right solution, or you adapt. And the power of the employees is rising and rising. In terms of salaries, obviously, we see that. We have in Germany, just for the IT jobs, because currently in terms, as a consequence of the digitization, everyone needs computer science people or IT skilled people. And it's not just IT companies. It's we talked with a manufacturer of professional kitchens. It's one of our customers in Germany. It's a world market leader. They make ovens for the professional canteens. They build up a software department with 20 people. And they make, I mean, you know what they make? Pure hardware, steelware. So that's a consequence because digitization starts to spread over. Everyone needs computer scientists. I would say you don't need computer scientists, but that's another story. So in the end, what we have there is in Germany more than 100,000 open jobs in just in IT. Just to give you the number, we have about 40 million employees in Germany, people that are in jobs. So, and 10,000 that are open jobs, I mean, they could go and they don't find people. And the number is rising. From year to year, there was a little bit a damper, I mean, going down in pandemic, obviously, because people were not hiring, but now it's going against with 20-25% increase per year in the gap. So you can extrapolate where we are. And the thing is, we currently, not explicitly but implicitly, if you think about in your mind, which groups I was talking about. Well, people a bit like us, the knowledge workers, the white collar people. But I can tell you the same is true to a fully extent also in the blue collar area. First, because there will be a need, because there will be a dividing between what is happening for the white collars and what is for the blue collars. But on the other hand, every argument I gave you till now is exactly the same valid for the blue collar area. Also about qualifications, we are I was talking with the Daimler manager about how to requalify the bus drivers that drive the buses within the factories, because this will be automated. And even because it's in a factory, you don't even need a regulation for this. You don't need to have the official regulation. It's just a liability and that kind of stuff. So what to do with this kind of people? And there are a lot. They just drive the people within the factory from A to B. Can they be requalified because they're not driving to train AI systems? That was actually the discussion. I can tell you it's not under NDA. Because they know what to look for when you drive. And for example, what we did, we have currently a lighthouse project in Germany where it's about showing that remote work, that new work also works in blue-collar scenarios. We worked there in logistics. We have 7 industries. Logistics, one is renewable, it's operator of renewable energy parks. One is about HVAC operator servicing. One is about steel building, and so on. I don't get them all. And what we do is showing that they can also work in new work approaches, remotely, digital, from home. We made the same currently in the healthcare area, where it's about how we can change processes for physicians in their manual talk. Obviously not well, there are solutions, but we are not working on them for surgery or that kind of stuff, but for the normal operation. So this will also happen here, and it will be applied to the same problematics. And in general, what does it mean when we bring it together? So probably at the end of the day, we might end up like this, all working. I don't know if you would like it or not. I'm not so sure. But why am I telling you this? Well, what we see is, most of you probably know these digital nomads. Those people that mainly they work from wherever they want, and project-based, some are in Malaysia, some are, usually they select the nice places. I would too. But this is a trend. If I look, I don't know for your workforce, but if I look at my people, obviously we started to have in a policy that you can work wherever you want within some legal requirements. Within Germany, especially because of the legal, but then people start asking me, well, if it doesn't matter if I work in Saarbrucken or in Munich, why shouldn't I work in Mallorca in Spain? Because it's the same, or in the US, or in Hawaii, or whatever. And currently, I have some arguments to say, well, there is some legal boundaries, but to be honest, and Sebastian, you should not hear, they are right. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to say you need to work in Germany, but you cannot work in, supposedly you make the same work and the results are the same. So all the things will shift from one point to the other. And what I see, I mean, that's a part of how we look at the future, how we try to predict the future, is you look at trends. And one of the things with the pandemic is obviously, usually I explain what means exponential growth and why humans are not able to understand naturally exponential growth. My standard example, we have the time, when I need to finish. I think I have 15 minutes left. Okay, I will quickly shut up. One of the best examples, to make you clear what I mean, is there was the Human Genome project, was a 3 billion euro project in 1919 to decode the human genome. And it was a 12-year project, set up for, no, 15-year project, and 3.5 billion euros. After half of the time, they made a review, how they are. And they spent half the time, about half the budget, so $1.5 billion spent. How much did they decoded? 1%. So you can ask yourself, if you are the manager, the responsible decision maker in this project, the decision board, would you stop it or would you let it run? Would you approve the next $1.5 billion? I can tell you they were perfectly in line because it's an exponential growth, and they were able to every 3 months double the amount of DNA sequences that they are able to depose. So they were even 1.5 years earlier finished than planned. So they were perfectly in time. But I'm sure in the concrete situation, we all would say never. There would be never you would be able to. So, and I'm telling you this because I see here very similar developments. So you need to look at the change rate, how things are changing, even if the changes are small. And what I see is that those developments, they have massive growth rates in companies. The new ways of working, the new requests where you approve other ways. And so that means at the end of the day, one possible future will be the digital blacksmith, because to round up the shape, before companies were invented, before we had manufactories, how did people work? They work at their home. The blacksmiths had their blacksmiths in their home. So you could say they have the perfect life-work balance, even if this word was at that time not invented yet. But what I see is a general trend for decomposition, for decentralized solution. It can be that it stays still in the corporation, but at least we should think about what happens if this is not the case. If people choose, and I could tell you some examples also from my company, that people say, oh, I don't want to work just for you, because I'm a rare resource. A lot of people want what I know, so I want to provide it for you, obviously. I'm very happy with you, perfect working environment, but I also want to provide it for X and Y in the same way, project-based. And that's something I would not say it exactly this will happen. But what I want to say, and maybe I want to give with you as a message, is this is a possible future that maybe for now it sounds very unlikely that it happens. But the indications show it's not so unlikely as you might think. So in this term, I hope we will never end up as digital blacksmiths, or maybe we will, depending on your personal preference. So for me, I would like to conclude the talk for today. I wanted to give you a bit of insights. Obviously, it was very much through the glasses of, or through the viewpoints of digitization, because that's some things that I can say. Maybe it was a bit unusual, unconventional opinions and insights, but to be honest, that was exactly my ambition, to give you some points to think about that you have maybe not heard in that way. So, and if I manage that you go out of this hall, beautiful hall, by the way, and you think about one or two of the points that I will try to raise, I would be more than happy. So thank you very much for your attention. And I don't know if we want to make some questions. So thank you very much.
So we have about 10 minutes.